The Trumpet Daily is presented by Stephen Fleury. The program analyzes world news and history from a distinct perspective and compares current events to prophecies found in the Bible. The program also offers free educational publications, including the Trumpet News Magazine and books and booklets. The Trumpet Daily is produced at the Philadelphia Church of God's home campus in Edmond, Oklahoma, and its sister campus in Edstone, England. More information is available at thetrumpet.com.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
So today is a historic day for peace, and Prime Minister Netanyahu and I have just concluded an important meeting on many vital issues, including Iran, trade, the expansion of the Abraham Accords, and most importantly, we discussed how to end the war in Gaza, but it's just a part of the bigger picture, which is peace in the Middle East. And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East. A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
History unfolding in the Middle East. The U.S. and Israel carrying out an unprecedented military operation, crippling Tehran's leadership by taking out Iran's supreme leader, along with dozens of other top officials.
Hundreds of targets have been hit by the U.S. and Israel, including defense systems, Revolutionary Guard facilities, and 9 Iranian Navy ships.
Iranian state media has confirmed the death of Iran's head of state, 86-year-old Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, a man that President Trump has called one of the most evil people in history. Also confirmed dead, the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the secretary of the Iranian Defense Council, and the chief of the country's armed forces.
One of the largest military operations in the history of modern warfare, with 900 U.S. strikes in just 12 hours, using 2 aircraft carriers, 3 destroyers, and B-2 stealth bombers, in striking at least 500 Iranian targets.
Iran is reeling.
Based on intelligence and this target of opportunity, a meeting at Khamenei's compound, quote, there was a deliberate decision to accelerate the timeline. That is why the U.S. and Israel took the unusual decision to strike during the daytime to achieve the element of surprise.
The sentiment for Iranian Americans across the globe, elation. Celebrations erupting after the strikes came down in what could be the best hope for relief from the Islamic regime's reign in decades.
Now, the Supreme Leader Khamenei being taken out, this isn't like taking out the president or general of the army or even the prime minister or even the Pope. You took out the number 2 to God in their religion. You took out the Supreme Leader. This is a statement to everybody. Brett Baer put out a post about the fact that they took out 40 of their leaders. Think about what that conversation looks like right now to say, listen, guys, you have a couple options. You can either work with us or you're next. But the world just got safer today because of all the leaders that were taken on. And God willing, if the mission is done, the world's going to be a safer place.
More huge news. Well, even during our annual college campout last year, you'll remember, we had the big explosion in the Oval Office with Zelensky in Ukraine. That seems like a decade ago almost. But you had that last year, and here we are. We take a few days off. We're out having fun with the campers, a little bit too much fun when we were shooting the shotgun. So forgive the blemish on my face today. Hopefully that doesn't cause a distraction. In any event, the head continues to spin. Earth-shaking events happening all through this past weekend. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us on today's show. If you'd like to email the program with some feedback, you can email the show, td@thetrumpet.com, or just leave some comments underneath the video on rumble.com/Trumpet Daily. Just know, too, we're also broadcasting live on YouTube, and then, of course, on our own website, thetrumpet.com. So a lot to get to on today's show. One thing I told the news gatherers this morning, because we're in the early stages of this, to just bring people right up to date with what is happening. As far as what will happen, I mean, we have the general framework of Bible prophecy. We know Iran is the king of the South. We know the Ayatollah was 86 years of age. So he was in the last years of his reign, as you heard there in the cold open. I mean, he was the supreme leader. He was right underneath God as far as the Iranian people are concerned. I'm not saying they were all supportive of that Islamist regime. Many are taking to the streets to celebrate his death. In Iran, they're celebrating this. But we'll see what happens with the regime in the days, weeks, and months ahead. You know, in one sense, you could look at this, given what the trumpet was saying back in 2001, that you're not going to eliminate this terrorist threat unless you go after the head of the snake and eliminate that threat and eliminate the snake. For 25 years, we've been paying attention to that quote that we had in the trumpet, or several of them, really. For 25 years, we've said, you know, it's Iran's the head of the snake. And now, I mean, you do have to give President Trump some credit for doing something that, you know, George W. Bush wouldn't do. Barack Obama wouldn't do it. Barack Obama was sending Iran pallets of cash. What a difference. Sending them, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars. And here Donald Trump, together with Bibi Netanyahu, roaring lion. I mean, that's another thing that you have to give Donald Trump credit for. The fact that he's carrying this out with Prime Minister Netanyahu. They've had their ups and downs as far as the relationship goes, but here's Manasseh working together with Judah. And a show of force. But just know, whether it's Iraq, Afghanistan, I mean, at the start, there has been this spectacular display of power. Look at where we were just last summer. You know, the United States is in, they're out. President Trump is saying total obliteration. It's totally eliminated. And here we are 8 months later. Obviously, the job wasn't finished last summer. Do you think this time they'll go in for the kill shot? It's easy to start a war, especially when you have all of the power and the technology that the United States has. But the end game, that's quite a lot different. How is this going to end? What does it mean? It's a regime change? It's easy to talk about it for 2-3 days, but what if the regime that replaces the Ayatollah, what if it's worse? There's a lot that we're going to be keeping our eyes on, but just to step back for a moment again and you know this if you've been watching the Trumpet Daily for the last many months. It's like every week there's this huge story and we just spend time with it, 2, 3, 4 programs. And I suspect that's probably what we'll be doing this time around. We've been saying in recent months how that there hasn't been a call for repentance in America. We haven't turned to God, even as we've seen the world going up in flames in so many ways. You saw there at the start of the cold open, President Trump talking about eternal peace in the Middle East. Guess when he said that? That was 154 days ago. So many big statements. Of course, we've heard through it all, we've heard about the Board of Peace. And now we're seeing a bit more about the Board of War. The Secretary of War with comments. The Department of War hard at work. It just 6 months ago, we declared eternal peace. This is a montage that the team pulled together. All of the comments about peace in recent months. Clip 16.
So this is a big day, a beautiful day, potentially one of the great days ever in civilization. Everything getting solved. It's called peace in the Middle East. Peace in the Middle East. And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East. Something that we're looking for. This is eternity. This is for forever. Is this true? Are you really doing peace in the Middle East? This is the most incredible thing we've heard.
The key to Middle East peace, I made Middle East peace for 3,000 years. They couldn't do it. I did it. And they are, I think right now I can say with what we did with our beautiful B-2 bombers going in and obliterating a very serious nuclear threat, which would have taken place in about a month from that date. They were ready to go. They're not ready to go anymore. They'd like very much to make a deal with us.
President Trump's historic peace plan in the Middle East, and things are going, frankly, better than I expected that they were.
To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace. Sort of a beautiful name, the Board.
We all share in peace, and we've never had and been so close to truly everlasting peace in the Middle East. All my life I've heard, oh, peace in the Middle East, but it'll never happen. We did it.
The promise of a new Middle East is so clearly within our reach. This is the closest we've ever come to real peace, not fake peace, not political fool's peace. If we can get this difficult problem solved, the opportunities for all within that vast region of this world, it's a vast region, it's unlimited.
Here again, you've got to give him some credit for confronting this beast, this snake, this number one terror sponsoring nation. Just showing some force, showing some will, showing some courage together with little Israel. But you step back and look at the bigger picture. Is man bringing peace to this world? Are we you heard all kinds of beautiful words there. Beautiful words, beautiful titles, wonderful sentiments. And what we see now, brutal war. American casualties, Israeli casualties, obviously casualties in Iran as well. But just for the operation itself, there's a Psalm 127:1. It says, except the Lord build the house, the weary builders labor in vain. Is this of God? Is this an operation that God is behind? Or is this a human effort? Or in the case of what we were saying back in 2001, is it too little too late? This is not, I'll read some quotes to you later, this is not Iraq. It's not Afghanistan. This is, a nation of 90 million people, I think. Thank you, Tucker Carlson. 90 million. It's a huge nation. It's huge territory. And, of course, the arsenal, the weaponry, even though, again, President Trump is crowing about taking out all of those Navy ships, sinking them to the bottom of the ocean. It has been devastating. It shows you what can be done with American power if we had the will to actually finish the job. And here you've got all of President Trump's critics criticizing because they hate Trump. Democrats who are suddenly concerned about the loss of American life. Not so much when you're withdrawing from Kabul. Let the Marines just blow up. What's the big deal? Or all of the murders brought on by illegal aliens. Last time I checked, there were no Democrats too concerned about that. But now they're very concerned. Now it's very disturbing. But it is true. Americans have little to no appetite for wars abroad, or certainly not for American casualties. I think it was something like 79% of Americans were against an operation in Iran before it actually happened this weekend. And right up until the operation was pushed forward because of the mullahs getting together with the Ayatollah. That seems strange to me, getting together in one location. They had been tracked, monitored for weeks, for months. And then they're taken out with one strike, 30 missiles or so. Take out the Ayatollah, 40 of his top men. Is it a total decapitation? Does this mean regime change? Can you really accomplish regime change without boots on the ground? I mean, even in Iraq, we actually had boots on the ground. Didn't work out so well. Same with Afghanistan. Will it be different this time around? Is this total obliteration like we heard last summer? Or is this just another pause? Listen to, again, you have to give President Trump some credit for working together with little Israel and for confronting Iran in a way that no president has been willing to do. Listen to this montage, the praise for Donald Trump and for this operation. Clip 15.
Iran in the future will no longer be the largest state sponsor of terrorism. They cannot rain terror on the region. They cannot commit mass murder. That's the goal of this operation. Again, the mothership of terrorism is sinking. The captain is dead. Well done, President Trump. It's been the policy of this country for decades to eliminate this regime. President Trump did it.
To me, the thing that really stands out, most importantly, is that nobody has come to the Islamic regime's defense. Not Russia, not China. We thought that we were facing this great axis of evil that was uniting as a front to create this multipolar universe in which the United States was no longer a superpower, and that turned out to be absolutely false. And what you can see from that is the larger picture of how the president is protecting the United States and setting us up for world dominance for generations to come. He is picking off our adversaries one by one, isolating them from each other and isolating them from their oil. So what we're really seeing here is, I'm calling it the locked-in presidency. He is just, every action he takes has not one, but 2 or 3 or 4 strategic advantages to strengthen the United States, to make us stronger, safer, and more prosperous, as Marco Rubio promised in his confirmation hearings. I think that's really what we're seeing.
Look, if this was a Little League game, the mercy rule would have gone into effect. The overwhelming effort these last now 72 hours is remarkable. We need to stay at it, finish this job, defang the Iranian regime, and we will have undone a central pillar of the Chinese Communist Party's power in the region in a way that only President Trump could possibly have pulled off.
He's setting the conditions for the regime to collapse and to move finally towards probably people that are less ideologue than what they are currently, and maybe somebody we can work with and put them on a process where eventually the Iranian people get back in control of their country. It is an incredible decision. It's going to define his presidency, and it's going to define his legacy.
President Trump's decision to go into Iran and to go in with overwhelming force is the most consequential decision of his presidency. I believe it was the right decision. Removing this regime from power makes America much, much safer. And so this is the president acting as a strong commander-in-chief, fulfilling his responsibility of protecting the American people.
This is going to open the door to stability and peace in the region that none of us could have seen, and none of the previous 7 presidents were ever willing to confront Iran in any consequential manner whatsoever that put their survival at risk. And this president has made that decision, and we're knocking on the doorstep of an enduring peace in the region as a result of it.
Here again, enduring peace. He should have just said eternal peace. That the one lady there in the middle, world dominance for generations to come. And of course, President Trump, for his part, he's echoed these same sentiments over and again, talking about how powerful the U.S. military is. Nobody can match U.S. military might. And then, of course, as part of this story, one of the other angles over the weekend, taking the shot at Europe. Yeah, Pete Hegseth saying, you know, they don't want to show a force. They talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. They don't back us with force. Sometimes you have to use force. You know, Board of Peace has been temporarily sidelined, I guess you could say. And now, now you criticize the Europeans for not being strong enough yet again. World dominance for generations to come. You see where the supporters of Jeroboam stand. There's quite a few commentators on the Tucker side that are criticizing this effort, that are saying, you know, you promised no foreign wars. What about America first? Shows how deeply divided America really and truly is. Is this show of strength? The push button power is impressive. But look at how long, they were working for months and months and months to negotiate with Iran, to try to talk with Iran, just like with Hamas. And then something finally, there was a tipping point somewhere. And now you've got this overwhelming force. We're trying everything to bring peace. But Isaiah 59 and verse 8 says we don't know the way to peace. And this is proof of this. Another attempt to bring lasting peace. Iran's finished. America is heading into an age of world dominance for generations to come. This is not God's perspective, far from it. Neil Ferguson at the Free Press, he says Iran in 2026 is not Iraq. It's different. It's a different ballgame. Back in those days, I shed no tears for Saddam and had considerable sympathy with the project of covert empire building. But I was a critic of the Bush administration's post-invasion nation-building strategy because I believe the U.S. lacked the key structural attributes to make it work. He says, by comparison with the British Empire, American power in the 2000s had 3 fateful deficits: a manpower deficit, a fiscal deficit, and an attention deficit. Just no appetite to finish the work. We didn't have the appetite to finish it last summer, obviously. You see that now, clear as day. So we're in day 1, day 2. The New York Times sends out a notice this morning. I think 2 or 3 U.S. planes shot down, evidently by friendly fire. There's Israeli casualties just outside of Jerusalem. And then, of course, Iran, for its part, it's not just aiming at Israel, but a lot of these Gulf states as well. They don't have the missile defense that Israel has. Iran's position, hey, if we're going down, we're taking our Arab enemies down as well. That's another development. That's another angle. You're going to begin to see the Psalm 83 division in the Arab world, or the alliance with Germany on the one hand, and then the radical Islamist movement on the other. Lots of takeaways. Ferguson says, I argued that the occupying force was too small relative to Iraq's population. The complete destruction of the Ba'athist regime, this is again comparing Iraq to Iran, was too small relative to, the complete destruction of the Ba'athist regime laid the foundations for anarchy and civil war, which swiftly mutated into an insurgency against the U.S.-led coalition. That was just Iraq, what, a couple decades ago? And that went on for years. You think America is ready for a years-long conflict? It's not a chance. Last summer, what was it? Just in and out. You know, for Israel, just a few days, 12 days? That's it? Israel could have gone in for the kill shot then. But their hands were tied behind their backs, or one of them was, by this same president, President Trump. And we were told all of these wonderful sounding words. Iran's finished. The nuclear program's over. This is the beginning of American dominance for generations to come. These words, they come back on us, as you heard from that montage. Peace, peace, board of peace. Everyone's invited. We'll sit down and talk with anybody. We're seeing man's legacy. And these prophecies that tell us what's to unfold just before the return of Jesus Christ, I mean, they're intensifying. And like I said, anymore, you can't even go away to camp out for a couple days without having some kind of spectacular explosion in world events. I mean, that in itself tells you we're living in the last days. 2 Timothy 3, Matthew 24. Ferguson said, "And I came to see that the principal beneficiary of Hussein's downfall was none other than Iran." So they destroyed the Ba'athist regime. It laid the foundations for anarchy and civil war. That swiftly mutated into an insurgency against the U.S.-led coalition. And it just went from bad to worse, right? And it empowered Iran. So now, fast forward a number of years, 10, 15 years, now we're confronting Iran. But what will be the fallout? What will be the end game? It's easy to start wars, but how do you finish this? That's why and I'm not saying that the advisors were 100% right either, but a lot of President Trump's advisors were saying, don't do it. Don't blow up the leadership. European leaders were saying this too, because they feared the fallout. What will emerge, once the dust settles? The unknowns here. It's something to think about. At least with this radical Islamist extremist, at least you know what we have to deal with. Again, I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't confront the head of the snake. In fact, it should have been done in 2001. But it wasn't. It wasn't. Instead, we went after Iraq, we went after Afghanistan, and by the end of it, it just empowered radical Islam. It empowered them all the more. Is America prepared to go in and finish the job? Well, it's impossible without boots on the ground, and nobody has an appetite for that. And so forget about where we are today, Monday, March 2nd. Where will we be a month from now? Where will we be a year from now? That's why it's important to read our Trumpet Briefs, our Trumpet Magazine. This little book right here, by the way, The King of the South. This is the bedrock, spiritually speaking, the sure word of prophecy. Neil Ferguson, again, of the Free Press, listen to what he had to say on their podcast, clip 2.
I want to link this to a question that's coming from the audience right now, which is people look at this conflict, they see it as hundreds of miles away. They worry about increase in oil prices as a result. And someone asks, please help me explain to my 30-year-old son who works hard but cannot afford to buy even a small home why the U.S.'s leadership in overthrowing the Iranian government is putting America first. Why is this in America's interest?
I think it's worth saying to any 30-year-old son, or indeed to teenage sons and daughters, if you have them, that Iran has been one of the world's principal sponsors of terrorism over this half century, and many lives have been lost in every decade since then. American lives, the Iranians were responsible for many of the deaths, for example, in Iraq, and certainly Iran was the principal sponsor of Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad when they carried out the October 7th, 2023 attacks. So part of the answer to the question is that this regime was in the last chance saloon, and when they slaughtered nearly 40,000 of their own people in early January, crushing popular protests, I think the Iranian leadership lost what little shreds of legitimacy they had left.
And that's true. I mean, you can't argue with that. Look at the history of this regime. And as President Trump keeps saying, I mean, it's been this way for 47 years. The #1 state sponsor of terrorism. So, you know, the push button show of force, as impressive as it is, takes out the leadership. But what is next? That's what we'll be looking at in the weeks and months ahead. At the Asia Times, it says here, the apparent U.S.-Israeli assumption behind the targeted strikes. Again, they're always targeted, especially with Israel and the United States. Everyone else, pretty much free reign. You know, look at Iran's response. Yeah, shoot them at Bahrain, UAE, all of them. Dubai, I mean, hit everybody. Hit Israel. If we could, we'd hit America. We'd hit Europe. And civilian sites, no problem. But with America, with Israel, it's always, always, always got to be targeted. And even then, you look at the weakness with Starmer in Britain, for example. Can't even come out with a position. This is Ephraim, the great British Empire of history. So much weakness in Israel. And you think of the Leviticus 26 prophecies, the fact that we've lost the pride in our power. Well, there's an American resurgence under Jeroboam, and we're seeing it. But the deep-seated sins and weaknesses of our people, it says in that same passage, the strength, America's strength, Israel's strength will be spent in vain. I mean, for someone to say this is a sign of American dominance for generations to come, while we run up trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in deficit spending, and while the appetite of ordinary Americans, it's perhaps at zero at the moment as far as foreign wars are concerned, no matter the cause, no matter how evil the regime. If 79% of Americans were against it before it even started, what's going to happen when American lives, when they start returning Americans in body bags? How long will this one go? Stop telling us how successful it was, how it's going to lead to lasting peace, eternal peace. Let's see how long this chapter continues before we're right back where we started from. Before America just washes its hands of this case and says, you know what, Europe, you deal with it. And when that happens, eventually Germany will. That's what Daniel 11 and verse 40 is all about. It says here, this is the Asia Times, the Islamic Republic is not a personalist regime cloaked in religious language. It's a revolutionary system built with an acute awareness of its own vulnerabilities. And it has invested heavily in preparing for leadership disruption. Under pressure, as the regime faces now, its structure is designed to consolidate rather than fragment. You know, you can't blame the Iranian people for celebrating. But again, it's not like there were only 2 or 3 ruthless, leaders. Yeah, you got the head of the IRGC, you've got the defense guy, you got the Ayatollah, obviously. I mean, it's kind of like taking out the Hezbollah leadership. Well, guess what Hezbollah started doing this past weekend? Well, resuming the attack on Israel. Evidently, there were people to step in there and fill those vacant positions. There always is. Because it's ingrained in their thinking, their education. The children of Hamas, I mean, they're taught to hate Jews, to kill Jews from the beginning. 37, no, what is it, like 47 years? That's generations of hatred, of a murderous spirit for the big Satan and the little Satan. It says here, a supreme leader killed by American and Israeli missiles during wartime is not merely a dead official, he's a martyr. That narrative will likely elevate candidates associated with ideological hardness and military prowess over those seen as champions of pragmatism or reform. Who's going to win out? The one following the steps and following in the martyr's footsteps, or the pragmatist, the reformer, the one promoting democracy? It says Iran is frequently portrayed as a state led by one individual, yet its post-79 architecture reflects a different logic, forged by revolutionary memory and historical trauma. Khamenei captured this hierarchy in a remark often cited by Iran's political elite. Preserving the Islamic Republic is more important than preserving any individual, even one of ultimate religious significance. It says finally, whether the system can uphold this principle under direct military assault is the question that will define the next phase of the conflict. What's clear is that the succession struggle now underway in Tehran will be treated inside the system less as a moment of collapse than as a test of institutional endurance, one the Islamic Republic's founders spent decades trying to ensure it would pass. So the leadership, for the most part, has been wiped out. And yet, as I say, you look at how Iran, still losing its Navy headquarters, all of these bombings, what, hundreds and hundreds of sorties, just bombs, bombs upon bombs. And yet, Iran somehow has been able to lash out at Israel and everyone else nearby. Listen to clip 13.
Iran retaliating, targeting U.S. bases, Israel, and multiple Arab nations. At least 9 people killed in a strike outside Jerusalem.
We are facing an act of aggression, and obviously we have every right to defend ourselves.
We've been hit. We've been hit.
We have seen countries like Iraq, Kuwait, the UAE, Qatar, all been targeted in this series of extraordinary lashing of weaponry that Iran is still able to throw at whatever targets it sees fit.
Iran managed to fire more than 300 missiles at the UAE, where the U.S. has a military base at Al Dhafra, about the same number as it fired toward Israel.
The shock waves across the Middle East at this hour, Iranian missiles and drones targeting at least 9 countries, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, countries with American bases. The airport tonight in Dubai on lockdown, targeted multiple times. Americans across the region stranded, unable to fly out. Multiple U.S. embassies on high alert.
Why? Why?
Look, it's unusual to see a ballistic missile breach the defensive systems that this country has around it, particularly the capital here, Tel Aviv. This one particular one managed to get through. It's not infallible. It's not 100%.
What is the feeling out there? Because, as you say, this is a country that is quite well accustomed to this form of conflict.
It is, but it's an essential difference here, Dave, because normally they're used to conflict that's delivered to them by smaller terrorism groups. I say smaller advisedly, but groups like Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. They fire these crude homemade rockets into Israel. This is next level destruction. This is the Iranians with their sophisticated, massive ballistic missiles.
I'm going to step out of the frame here so that you can see just the amount of damage that one single missile can cause. It's not just Israel's second largest city of Tel Aviv. It's also the northern city of Haifa that sits along the Mediterranean. It's the city of Jerusalem.
Drone footage shows a crater and demolished buildings where an Iranian missile struck the Israeli city of Bet Shemesh on Sunday. Israel's ambulance service said at least 9 people were killed in the attack.
Destruction, cars that have been destroyed, homes that have been completely leveled. And Holly, this is where we've seen the highest number of casualties. 9 people dead just at this scene, nearly 30 people injured. A lot of these casualties, according to the police, were killed while they were inside one of these safe rooms, these basically bomb shelters.
Oh my God. Whoa! Whoa! Oh my God! Yo! Yo!
You can feel how much more fear there is about Iran's particular offensive weapons, these ballistic missiles.
Bet Shemesh, not that far from Jerusalem. And of course, sirens, our correspondents in Jerusalem could tell you, going off, through the weekend, all across Israel. This is from the American Jewish Committee publication. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has also disrupted traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, saying that traffic through the vital shipping lane was not allowed. So, this is Iran pushing. And soon the push is going to really impact Germany and the now forming Holy Roman Empire. 9 countries they fired missiles at. America's, if you think for a moment about America's role or part in this, America's biggest enemy, as we've seen certainly through my lifetime, has always been itself. Its appetite or lack thereof to finish the job. Look at how far America will go to avoid casualties, quite unlike these enemy nations. Congress, of course, is probably going to intervene at some point. If President Trump doesn't pull back the forces, how soon will it be when Congress gets in there and says, hey, you got Lindsey Graham and some of the others cheerleading at the moment. A lot to keep our eyes on, as I say. There's about 1,000 different angles to take away from this past weekend's events. President Trump, for his party, came out with some statements as soon as the attack began. This is from, I think, early Saturday morning, clip 3.
For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer.
Of course, he's exactly right. But how many times have we also heard when the effort is made to sit down across the table with these architects of terror? How many times have we heard President Trump or those that are making peace on behalf of President Trump How many times have we heard them say, listen, I mean, this generation, they shouldn't be responsible or held responsible for what their grandparents did or what their parents did. This is a different time. This is a historic opportunity for peace. Where's the history? When you're sitting down with Hamas, you don't even have to go back to 1979. You can go back to 2023 and say, look at what they did. This was 28 months ago. It's so selective. It's human reasoning. In one discussion, forget about history. Forget about the German war machine from World War I and World War II. Today, they're an ally. Now they need a war machine. Now they need to help keep the peace. Pretty soon, when Germany's on the march, when Germany again attempts to overthrow the world, we're going to be looking down at a listing, a historical listing, like you just heard there. For 47 years, this has been the history. When Germany strikes, it's going to be just a little bit longer, you know. For 110 years, this has been the history. And for a time, I mean, yeah, it was suppressed because, well, we had NATO, and NATO was designed to keep Russia out and keep America in and keep Germany down. That's right. That's right. Keep Germany down. Listen again to President Trump from Saturday, clip 4.
It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests.
And you know what I think of when he talks about, we tried everything. We tried to negotiate. We obliterated their nuclear facilities. But they just want to practice evil. That's just their way. That's their practice. Well, Hamas is Iran's proxy. Hamas controls Gaza. Hamas was not obliterated, didn't finish the job. Hamas was not disarmed. Hamas practices evil. And you could go right through the long line of history, just like President Trump did with Iran. There's no real consistency in the way that we use history or not use history. There's no real consistency in the approach that we have to peacemaking. That's because we're just trying everything. We're recycling old ideas. We're doing everything that we can to humanly reason our way through it. God is not at the center. God's not leading the operation. And so we're left to our own devices. And it's not working. It's just not working. When is man going to wake up to the fact that without God, we are nothing? We're just lumps of clay. We need God's guidance. We need His instruction. We need His inspiration. We need His correction. We need repentance. We need humility. What a world we're living in. It's about to explode, and we've got a lot of mini explosions. You can't even really say this past weekend was a mini explosion. There was a clip on social media, just the size of Iran as you move it through Europe or even the United States. It's a massive country. This is huge. I mean, it's so huge. This is why George W. Bush didn't go after the head of the snake. Eternal peace in the Middle East, declared just 154 days ago. Eternity doesn't last for very long in the realm of men or human civilization. Skip ahead to number 6. This is again President Trump announcing Operation Epic Fury. Clip 6.
To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. Finally, to the great proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight.
And he's right about that. But in that same statement, as you heard, he's telling the Iranian people it's a limited strike. And if you're going to have regime change, you, the people, have to do it. Well, what about those who've been trained at the feet of the mullahs? Or who are in the Revolutionary Guard? I mean, what we're about to see could be, a brutal civil war before Iran really aggressively, even a civil war if that were to happen. I mean, the refugees that you'd have come out of it would be, again, just pouring into Europe. Some way, somehow, Iran, the king of the south, is going to push, as Daniel 11:40 says. And that's going to lead to an even bigger explosion than what we've seen these past 3 days. On clip 8, President Trump here talks about, again, the strength, the power of America's military, as if, again, this signals a new era of American dominance that's just going to go on and on for generations. Play clip 8.
Our resolve, and likewise that of Israel, has never been stronger. America is now, again, the richest, most powerful nation in the world by far. But the only reason we enjoy the quality of life that we do and the freedom and security is we have done things that others are unable to do. But it's because of warriors who are willing to lay down their lives to do battle with our enemies. And they do battle better than anybody.
Strength. But the Bible says the strength is going to be spent in vain. I've just got a minute and a half. Let me just give you a bit on Germany's response. That's something to keep your eye on as well. Firstly, this is Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth over the weekend, clip 1.
Turns out the regime who chanted death to America and death to Israel was gifted death from America and death from Israel. Capable partners. As we've said since the beginning, capable partners are good partners. Unlike so many of our traditional allies who wring their hands and clutch their pearls, hemming and hawing about the use of force.
So many of our traditional allies, he didn't specify there. But again, you read between the lines, and as we've seen from Davos through Munich and on. I mean, this war of words between the U.S. and Europe, and then now you see an explosion of violence in the war in the Middle East. And it's touching Europe. And they've already got Ukraine to think about right next door. This was Deutsche Welle News on Germany's response to what happened this past weekend. Clip 10.
Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz has called on the Iranian regime to end its attacks on Israel and on the US in the Middle East, and says Tehran's nuclear activities must be halted.
We share the interest of the United States and Israel in seeing an end to this regime's terrorism and its dangerous nuclear and missile programs. The military strikes are intended to put an end to the destructive game being played by a weakened regime. This is not without risk. We do not know how far the region will be dragged into escalation by Iran's harsh counterstrikes. We take the concerns of our partners in Iran's immediate neighborhood, in the Gulf and in Europe, very seriously. We therefore call on Tehran to immediately end these indiscriminate attacks.
And again, right now, it would seem that America and Germany are on the same page, but I think more significant than that, we know about the coming divide, the transatlantic divide, but you're seeing Germany now become more active, more vocal, more involved, talking about its allies, the Gulf states, and so on. Psalm 83 is coming into play for sure. King of the South booklet, make sure that you request a free copy of that if you don't have it already. And then this one here, Germany and the Holy Roman Empire. It gives you some important history together with what the Bible says about prophecy. We took you a minute over today, but we won't charge you for that extra content. You are listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We thank you for joining us on today's show, and we'll see you again tomorrow.